Right, we're ready.
Okay, go ahead, Christine.
Due to COVID-19, this meeting will be conducted as a Zoom meeting pursuant to the provisions of Assembly Bill 361, which suspends certain requirements of the Brown Act. This meeting is being live streamed on the CCTA website. The chair will call upon members, staff, and other speakers by name. Please speak clearly and state your name before giving comments or remarks. Persons participating via Zoom with their cameras enabled are reminded that their activities are visible to viewers. Members participating by Zoom wishing to speak should physically raise their hand and unmute their mic when called upon. Members should mute their mics when done speaking. Citizens participating by Zoom wishing to speak should use the raise hand feature or dial *9 if participating via phone, and the chair or staff will call upon them at the appropriate time. Citizens will have 3 minutes to speak. After 3 minutes, staff will lower their hand and mute their mic. Participants via phone will be called upon by the last 4 digits of their phone number. It is requested that public speakers state their names and organization, but providing such information is voluntary. Written public comments received in accordance with the teleconferencing special notice for public comment guidelines are printed on the meeting agenda. If authors of the written correspondence would like to speak, they should raise their hand and the chair will call upon them at the appropriate time. All written correspondence received after that and during the meeting will be entered into the record. A roll call vote will be taken for all action items. Thank you for participating in a meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority.
Great, thank you, Christina, for playing that. Christina, will you now please call the roll?
Yes, Chair Arnrich,
Here.
Vice Chair Nowak,
Here.
Member Butt,
Here.
Member Geringer, and Member Thorpe. Right, we have 3 members here, so we do have a quorum.
Okay, great, thank you. So the next item is for public comment. And we'll first start with Christina. Have we received any written comments?
We have not.
Okay. Is there anyone who would wish to speak at this time under public comment? If so, please use the raise hand function and we will call on you. And these are only for items that are not on the agenda and items that are pertinent to our committee. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak under public comment? Please raise your hand. Christina, I do not see
No
any.
hands raised.
Okay, great, thank you. The next item is the consent calendar, and consent calendar are items that are considered routine and can be acted on in one motion. However, is there anybody in the public who would wish to speak on any item and or pull an item for discussion? If so, please raise your hand and we'll call on you. And Christina,
No hands
do you
raised.
see anybody? I do not see anybody. Okay. Is there anybody on the committee who would like to pull an item for discussion? If so, please raise your hand. Seeing none, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second, Butt.
Been moved by Noack, seconded by Butt. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Christina, will you call the roll?
Yes. Chair Arnrich,
Yes.
Vice Chair Nowak,
Yes.
and Member Butt.
Yes.
All right, it passes with members present.
Great, thank you. So this will take us to item number 4 under our regular agenda. And this first one is informational, and it's an update on our legislative processes. And Lindsay Willis will kick us off. Lindsay, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, commissioners. We have with us this morning both our state advocates and our federal advocates. So rather than listen to me talk, we'll just jump right in and let them give their updates, and then we can ask any questions for them. So this morning we're going to have Mark Watts go first, because I know he's got another commitment a little later this morning to give you all the news that's fit to print from the state capitol. So Mark, go ahead.
Morning, Mark.
Good morning. Thank you, Lindsay, and thank you, Chair and
appreciate the opportunity to appear before the committee today. I thought I would catch you up on the wave of departures from the assembly, given the news that your local assembly member is resigning at the end of December, Mr. Frazier from the 11th AD. So there is a small wave of folks that are departing. It started when Mr. Bonta was appointed as Attorney General. There's already been a special election to replace him. And it was mentioned earlier that Assemblymember David Chu from San Francisco has been appointed city attorney, and there's an election scheduled to replace him in April. Assemblymember Chow from San Gabriel area was appointed last week by the governor to the LA Superior Court, and there'll be a special election. It hasn't been announced yet. And in addition, Assembly members Bloom, Salas from Bakersfield, and Mullen from San Mateo are all running for other offices and will not be seeking re-election. So we could see quite a bit of changeover just on the natural in the next couple months. Within the year, excuse me, not the next couple months. So I thought I would also now turn to the biggest conversation piece in transportation policy floating around the Capitol right now, and that is the continuation of potential discussions leading to a new transportation budget deal. If you recall, this last summer or in May, the governor proposed a dual package with complete $4.2 billion remaining funding from the High-Speed Rail Bond Act, coupled with nearly $4 billion worth of general fund for transportation programs, with $3.5 billion of that dedicated to the TIRCP in various structures. The discussions between the governor and the legislature in terms of completing the appropriation of this package fell apart, and as a result, the general fund, at least the $3.5 billion for transit, was reverted back to the general fund where it sits in the reserve. So now the news was, and you've probably seen this reported heavily, the Legislative Analyst Office and others are projecting a state budget surplus yet again, and could be as high as $30 billion. So in the wake of that, the State Transportation Commission was probably the first ones out of the blocks with their proposal at their October meeting that $1 billion be added to the active transportation program, as well as $1 billion for the STIP program, mainly to replace the lack of public transportation funding in the STIP. And that has been formalized with a letter to the governor and making that request. So let me get my notes here. Sorry about that. Following suit, regional agencies have been looking at the possible surplus and looking at the needs for transit in particular and some of the other programs. And for example, MTC has written a letter to the governor expressing desire for a request for as much as $10 billion of the presumed $30 billion to be available for various transit programs. And I know Southern California organizations are putting together their suggestions, and probably in line with what MTC is suggesting, kind of a target rather than a very specific, explicit appropriation. I think I would close this conversation because we don't know what's going to happen until the legislature returns on January 3rd, and we start to see movement and committee hearings and the like convening. So we'll be monitoring that very closely. But I would just throw a dash of reality on this. If indeed there is a $30 billion surplus anticipated over the 2 years, you have to remember that there are other constitutional requirements that would bind up some of that funding. For example, somewhere between 40 to 50% of any new general fund resources above what had been budgeted typically would be due to be allocated to under Prop 98 to K-12 education. In addition, you also have the specter of the spending limit, which caps the ability to appropriate general funding based on the prior year's appropriation with some growth, somewhat like the California growth index. And so it probably would be more realistic to expect if there were 30 billion, it's going to be more like 12 billion available for flexible appropriation. So with that, I would bring my conversation to a close and be available for questions. There's no action on today's report. So I thank you for the opportunity.
Great, Mark. Thank you. Questions from or comments from the committee? No, Mark, thank you again. Sort of an interesting time as redistricting is going to be released here. People exiting, people jumping into jobs that pay them 2 or 3 times what they're making, and sort of an interesting time. Do you see more of this happening before the spring?
I do, particularly once we see the redistricting, as you point out, because there'll be changes that affect the composition of the congressional seats. And folks are already moving out of discussing not moving ahead with re-elections there. So you're going to see a chain reaction from current legislators that we haven't even heard about yet, making new plans and looking and jockeying for a position. So I think it's going to be a wild west in the next couple of months in terms of positioning for elections.
Great, Mark. Thank you again. Always appreciate your work. Lindsay, you want to tee us off on Fed side?
Yes, we have with us our federal advocacy team, Jason Ty, Gus Maples, and Madeline Pike, a familiar face who has come back to do some more work for CCTA. And I know they've got an update on the infrastructure bill for you and also some additional news out of DC. So Gus, Madeline, I'm not sure which one of you is kicking it off, but feel free to take it away.
Welcome.
Hi, good morning, everyone. We wanted to start things now that President Biden has signed the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, and we've had a little time to comb through the more than 2,000 pages of new funding and policies in it. I wanted to walk through some of the programs in that $1.2 trillion reauthorization of the old FAST Act programs, including several new programs and new eligibilities and a lot of the highway, transit, rail, and other surface transportation programs at the federal level. This provides $550 billion above the baseline in new spending. It covers energy related to electric vehicle charging, as well as some water infrastructure and the traditional surface transportation activities. Highways sees a more than $300 billion total with an additional appropriation above that. And I was actually telling Lindsay the other day, one way that I've started to look at this bill is that it's almost a stimulus in addition to the transportation reauthorization, because it directly puts out tens and even hundreds of billions of dollars in the first year, in addition to authorizing programs over the next 5 years for longer term planning. It includes a new bridge formula program to replace, repair, and rehabilitate bridges that are classified in poor condition or at risk of falling into poor condition. And it also creates a new competitive discretionary grant program to that effect as well. The grants will be funded at roughly $12.5 billion. And the formula is actually more than double that at $27 billion over the next 5 years. The bill also raises the cap on private activity bonds from $15 billion to $30 billion so that counties can enter into more public-private partnerships. Surface transportation system funding alternatives is another thing that counties can apply to directly for funds to carry out eligible activities. This includes testing the design of alternative user fees to help transition away from a reliance on the gas tax. Um, California specifically received just barely over $4 billion from the FAST Act in the most previous fiscal year, 21. The estimate for the upcoming year is approximately $4.86 billion out of this new bill, and the state will receive a total of $25.3 billion over the following 5 years. Within the Highway Trust funded programs, one very popular one is the Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Improvement Program. While not as forward-looking as the INVEST Act from the House, the Senate bill does add new, innovative, and progressive eligibilities for CCTA interests like micromobility. This includes bike share and shared scooter systems. And it also creates a new eligibility to allow for the purchase of medium and heavy duty zero emission vehicles and the related charging equipment for that. Within the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program, this is a sort of bedrock of a lot of the hard infrastructure, roads, tunnels, bridges, and some transit components as well. That's funded over $72 billion over the next 5 years. And it allows for new eligibilities related to EV charging infrastructure, as well as vehicle to grid infrastructure, and new resilience features to be built into future infrastructure. The National Highway Performance Program allows funds to go towards resiliency, cybersecurity, and undergrounding EV-related utility infrastructure as well. In addition to that congestion mitigation program and the electric eligibilities that are new for some highway funding, the bill does include $7.5 billion for building out a national network on EV charging infrastructure. Now, this is a first ever massive investment in this initiative, and it will involve establishing a formula to distribute the funds, but that's a major centerpiece and looking toward the future of our transportation fleet. I'll turn it over to Maddie to focus a little bit on some of the transit components.
Welcome, Madeline.
Thanks, Gus, and thanks for everyone for having me. First, I would just be remiss without announcing kind of a major retirement in Washington that was announced yesterday. The chairman of the Transportation Committee, Peter DeFazio, announced and my former boss, announced his retirement yesterday after 36 years of sitting on the committee. So it will be a major loss for DC and just in general, knowledge of transportation. But we'll be looking to the jockeying of who the next chair will be, and that's something that is already kind of coming up, and there are a couple members that are making a play for it. So that's something that we'll be watching. But like Gus said, I would like to kind of go over some of the transit pieces and some of the things that I know are of interest to CCTA in terms of Vision Zero, and there's a lot in the research title that I think could be of interest to CCTA. So in general, the transit title is funded at $40 billion over 5 years, which is a 30% increase over current spending. And this can be used for multiple purposes like bus grants and capital and station improvements. The big priority is to fund the transit backlog, which DOT estimates is over 24,000 buses, 5,000 rail cars, 200 stations, and thousands of miles of track signals and power systems. The FTA, the Federal Transit Administration, has indicated already that they have 4 key priorities when looking for awarding grants and just what their interests are in right now. And those include safety, modernization, climate, and equity. So there's a lot that I could talk about in terms of transit, but one thing that is kind of a big, bold investment that I know CCTA is indicated interest in is there's a lot of new ferry money. So I know that there's a desire for new ferry service from some of the eastern cities to Martinez. And I'll just say that, so there are two places that ferry funding comes from currently, and it's the Federal Highways Administration, which has formula funding, and then the FTA, which has discretionary grants. And so from the highway account, there's an increased authorization from $80 million a year to $178 million a year. And that's a 123% increase. So that's obviously quite a bit. For the passenger ferry grants, which are under FTA, they have $1.25 billion, which is also a significant increase. And then what I think is new and innovative and probably of interest is that there's going to be a new $250 million pilot program for electric and low emitting ferries, because climate is such a big priority for the administration and Congress right now. So that will be something to look into. And then lastly, because I'm not sure, I didn't talk to Lindsay about who exactly the operators would be, but one thing that I know is definitely of interest to lots of counties and folks is that there's a new provision that would allow for privately owned ferry boats and terminals to be eligible for federal funding if there's a substantial need for it that can be shown. So I'm not sure who would be the operators that you're looking for, but that's just something to note. I'll move on to the Vision Zero kind of safety, complete streets aspect of this. One thing that I think is pretty significant is there's a new $200 million per year competitive grant program that will fund regional and local comprehensive safety action plans, which we refer to as Vision Zero. And the funding will be available for creating an action plan, developing activities for projects and strategies, and then implementing those projects from the plan. And so that is one area that I think will be of interest. Another, there's a new accessibility pilot program that will provide accessibility data that better measures how well a proposed project will connect people to everyday destinations like schools, work, shops, etc., which I know is an interest in, well, it has been in the past of CCTA. So that will be something to look to. And another thing, just talking about safe streets and complete streets and Vision Zero in general, there's a new requirement that states and MPOs will be required to use 2.5% of their planning funds to adopt complete streets policies or standards. And that includes developing a complete streets prioritization plan and a bunch of other things. So I will move on to the research title, and there's a lot in here that I could talk about. So I'm going to try to not spend too much time talking about this, but I think there's a lot of good stuff in here, and certainly happy to do a deeper dive later if that's of interest. But there's a lot of new money and policy changes that I think could definitely benefit the innovative work that CCTA is doing, and in conjunction with Momentum and lots of stuff like that. So I'll start with the research and technology development and deployment section of the title. There's going to be a new emerging technology research pilot program, which I think could benefit the work being done at Momentum and potentially some of the Innovate 680 pieces. So this is a $5 million per year pilot program that would establish it's a pilot program to conduct emerging technology research, like advanced and additive manufacturing technologies. So that would be like 3D printing. But it also will fund research into activities that reduce the impact of automated driving systems and advanced driver automation system technologies on pavement and infrastructure performance, and also to improve transportation infrastructure design. So I think that's something that we'll definitely be interested in looking towards, to tapping into. There are several policy changes within the research title that I won't go all the way into the weeds on, but a little bit into the weeds on, because I know some of these things are definitely of interest to CCTA. One thing is that the Turner Fairbank Highway Research Center, their objectives will be expanded to support research on non-market ready technologies in consultation with public and private entities. So all of the cool, innovative stuff that CCTA and Momentum is doing, I think would tie nicely into here. There will also be an open challenge and research proposal pilot program that provides grants for proposals to research needs or challenges identified or determined to be important by the secretary. So this is like a pretty broad new thing. It also will expand the technology and innovation deployment program by adding a focus on accelerated market readiness efforts and increasing funding for the program, including $100 million in new and innovative construction technologies for smarter accelerated project delivery. And then the other thing in here that I wanted to note is that there's a new authorization for a Center of Excellence on New Mobility and Automated Vehicles to research the impact of automated vehicles and new mobility. And I guess might have talked about this already, but so apologies if I'm being redundant, but this is like kind of the docked and dockless bike systems and electric scooters and things like that. I will kind of move on to the ITS, the Intelligent Transportation Systems Program Advisory Committee. So that will be expanded to include new members with different areas of expertise, which I know is something that's been of interest for a while. And member term limits will be set to 3 years. Another area of interest is the Smart Community Resource Center. So this will require the secretary to create a website with resources on smart community transportation projects. So these are projects that will use innovative technologies, data, and other means to address local challenges. And technical assistance and training are examples of this. Let's see, what else? Another thing that might sound not too important, but I think will be in the long run, is that the law codifies the Non-Traditional and Emerging Transportation Technology Council. So this improves agency coordination to enable new transportation technologies through adoption of best practices and identification of a lead modal agency for a given technology. So I'm thinking in the past, with some of the automated shuttles and things like that, there's been a little bit of gray area when we've done meetings with NHTSA and FMCSA, and where do some of these things fall under. So I think that hopefully this will help provide some clarification, especially now that it's been codified, and kind of get rid of some of that gray area that we've seen in the past. And then moving on, I will talk a little bit about the Advanced Transportation Research section. So there will be a new Advanced Research Projects Agency Infrastructure Program. That's a mouthful. to fund research and development on advanced transportation infrastructure technologies. And this would support the novel early stage research as well as kind of advanced conceptual research into testing and deployment. So that's something I think that we'll be interested in looking into once things are a little more developed from the administration side. And then there is also there's lots of new pilot programs. I feel like I keep on mentioning tons, but there's a new pilot program for it's an open research initiative. And I think this is going to be pretty cool because it's focused on allowing a lot of different entities, including state and local agencies, to submit unsolicited research proposals to the secretary. And so it would basically require the secretary to coordinate any of this research carried out under the pilot with other DOT and federal agency research activities. And so, obviously CCTA is on the forefront of a lot of this stuff. So I think that that's something that we could look into tapping into. And then the last thing I'll just touch on, and then I'll throw it back to Gus, because we'll both be talking about kind of new competitive discretionary grants, is the SMART grant program. So it's the Strengthening Mobility and Revolutionizing Transportation, mouthful, grant program. And so this is a new discretionary program for city and community demonstration projects that incorporate innovative transportation technologies or uses of data, including coordinated automation, connected vehicles, and intelligent sensor-based infrastructure. The secretary will be directed to consider geographic diversity, so obviously looking at rural, mid-sized, and large communities. But this will be authorized at $100 million annually. So this, I think, is definitely something that CCTA is going to be, we should look at this to get money out of for lots of things. But with that, I will turn it back to Gus to talk about a couple of the bigger discretionary grant programs.
Thanks, Madeline.
Yeah, Maddie hit the nail on the head about the SMART program. That does relate to some earmarks that CCTA did pursue earlier this year as well for signal synchronization and improving congestion around the county. It kind of built out of some projects that were awarded from the RAISE grant program, used to be called Build and Tiger before that. That program used to be funded around, on a good year, $1 billion a year. This new bill authorizes the RAISE grants at $1.5 billion. And back to my point on how this just dumps a ton of money in the first year, it further provides $7.5 billion just guaranteed up front to be spent over the course of several rounds of funding. This is a great investment because the program routinely receives over $10 billion in requests for grant funding around the country. These grants range from around $5 million up to $25 million max. It's a great resource for local governments and counties to directly access millions in federal funding. And it's multimodal. It can go towards road and bridge projects, ports, the surface transportation components of an airport project. Rail can be used as well. And this is sort of the smaller grant program of the big discretionary pots at USDOT. The larger one is called the infra grants, and that is funded in the past about 1.2 or 3 billion per year. The new bill will authorize that at $2 billion per year. These are highway and bridge projects, freight rail, railway, highway separations and eliminations, and certain public transportation projects. But the bigger focus of this program is large-scale grants Could be $100 million in that ballpark. And there is a focus on freight for this as well. It does raise the cap. I believe in the past iteration of this grant, it was around 20%. It does raise the cap to 30% now for multimodal projects. This could include port and rail, or across different transportation modes. Those are the two big ones. In addition to what Maddie had said, is this kind of groundbreaking SMART grant. And on that front, the Senate bill, this IIJA that became law, unfortunately did not include earmarks or congressionally directed spending. But CCTA does still have, I believe it's 1.3 million and some change in smart signal synchronization directed funding in the House Transportation Appropriations Bill. So while this bill did not include some of the projects that were in the House version, there is another avenue that we're continuing to work and push through the appropriations process. Maddie, if you don't have anything else, I think that is the brunt of our presentation. So if there are any questions, we'd be happy to hear people out.
Great. Gus, we're having a little trouble hearing you there. You're garbling it with our internet connection, or maybe it's mine. Manny, I had a quick question for you before we open it up. Who do you think the top two contenders are for the Transportation Committee?
So right now, oh good, I'm not muted. Right now, Eleanor Holmes Norton, who's the DC delegate, she is the most senior member of the committee, and she's already announced that she announced seconds after the chairman announced his retirement that she would be interested in, that she's gonna go for it, basically. And then the other member is Rick Larson from Washington State, who is the second most senior member of the committee. It will be interesting because Eleanor Holmes Norton is a delegate, so she doesn't have the power to vote in the House, but she would also be the first female chair of the committee for, and obviously this is just thinking that the Democrats maintain the majority, which I don't know if that's going to happen. But Rick Larson, he is the chair, he's the current chair of the aviation subcommittee, while Norton is the chair of the highways and transit subcommittee. So they both bring very different backgrounds. So at this point, those are the two big contenders, and we'll definitely be watching to see what happens.
Great, thanks for that update. First, I'll go to committee members and welcome Mark. Are there any questions from committee members? Tom, go ahead.
You know, the magnitude of this bill is unprecedented, and the opportunities for CCTA and cities in Contra Costa County is also unprecedented. And I don't want to lose this opportunity, and I would like for staff to maybe look at a plan for increasing the allocation and the time for our consultants working on these. Maybe even think about bringing in something like a full-time employee position for the next year to work on this, and to do everything we can to try to find money that we can bring to Contra Costa County, and also collaborate with our cities, you know, to try to maximize this. I mean, if we miss the boat on this, I mean, that's a big boat. And so I'd like to see a plan worked up fairly quickly to think about increasing our investment in monitoring this and trying to direct these resources to CCTA and Contra Costa cities.
Tom, thanks. So you're specifically talking about particularly grant writing and for those that are competitive funding. So great. Any other questions, comment from committee members? Sue?
No, I just wanted to follow up on Tom's comments because I don't know how many of the cities have staff enough to keep track of this stuff as well. And so there's a way to communicate out to the cities some of this information a little bit better so that we can follow up to the extent they're city related grants. That would be helpful.
Absolutely. Great. Other questions, comments? Is there, Lindsay or Christina, I should say, did we receive any written comments on this item?
No, we did not.
Is there anybody in the audience who would like to address the committee on this item? This is not an action item.
Mr. Chair, if sorry,
Yeah,
I didn't
Jason.
raise my
Yeah,
hand.
welcome.
Okay, you're welcome. I just wanted to make a quick point based on Member Butt's comments, which I think is very spot on. And that is, this is truly a once in a generational type of initiative. Putting into perspective, the last reauthorization bill was about 300 billion or so. This infrastructure package, this is back from 2015. The current one is 1.2 trillion. So we're looking at a 4x, if my math is right, increase in terms of what was done 5 or 6 years ago. But one element, we certainly don't want to miss the boat. So I do want to point out also that I think a large part of this, had it not been for our congressional delegation, with a specific hat tip to Mr. Desaulniers, but also the leadership of the board and Tim and Lindsay to create new eligibility options that Mr. Desaulniers created. So all the money wouldn't just go to the states. It would give local units of government, such as CCTA, an eligible opportunity to apply for grants that they wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to present itself. So I do want to point out that, those things, while tend to get masked in a massive 1,000, 2,000 page package, does create much more significant opportunities for CCTA and your peers. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out to the leadership of the board, as well as the agency for making that happen with Mr. Desaulniers. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Jason. Tim? I know Tim's already been working on this because we've been talking about it for months here.
Yeah, so I just wanted to follow up on some of these comments. So Lindsay and I have been talking about, developing some sort of work plan around this infrastructure bill and sitting down with Ty Ginsburg Associate, Jason, Maddie, and Gus to really lay out some sort of priority work plan. And we've already started doing that. We had a really nice session. They came to CCT's offices and we kind of laid out some priorities for next year based on what we thought the infrastructure bill was going to look like. Now that we know what it looks like, it's here. Everything that Maddie and Gus are talking about are all going to be opportunities. The one issue I want to remind everyone on is that you're going to need match funding for a lot of these programs. And so we need to be creative with our Measure J funding. And so that might mean leveraging potentially return to source funds and other types of Measure J funds in the overall portfolio to be able to match a lot of these federal dollars that are going to be coming in. Unfortunately, we didn't pass a new measure in 2020. And so we're going to be really limited on our opportunities based on the match funding. And so we need to get creative with our Measure J funding and potentially program funding as well to be able to really pursue and be competitive on all of this infrastructure funding that's going to be coming in the door.
Great, Tim, thank you. I know you guys are working on it, and Tom, just, I think we're all reinforcing that same thing. This is the time to do it. But you're right, the biggest challenge for all of us and us as an agency, because our Measure J funds are pretty well committed based on formulas and things. How do we qualify and get matching funds? And the matching funds are not small items, and they're not readily available to cities and local government. We don't have the excess money other than what we might have in our next tranche of the recovery funds that will come next July. And that may be something we should all keep in the back of our mind, that maybe is an opportunity to really leverage those funds up. So great. Any other questions, comments? Great. Gus, Jason, and Madeline, great to see you. Thank you. Really well done. Lindsay, thanks for keeping our team and keeping us at the forefront. Okay, this will take us on to item number 4B. And this item is an action item. It's going to be presented by Hisham Noemi, and this is to seeking authorization with the Executive Director to execute the Bay Area Express Lanes Network Executive Steering Committee MOU. Hisham, take it away.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and committee members. My name is Hisham Noemi. I'm the Director of Programming at CCTA. Today, we are asking authorization for the Executive Director to execute the Express Lane Network MOU for the Executive Steering Committee. CCTA will be one of 11 parties signing the MOU that have interest in ensuring the Express Lane Network operates seamlessly. The MOU formalizes the role of the Express Lane Network Executive Steering Committee to ensure consistency in operations along all the express lanes in the Bay Area. And as the network gets connected in the region, it's becoming increasingly important to ensure the user experience is consistent and the same. I want to note membership to the committee is voluntary, and recommendations from the Executive Steering Committee will still have to be approved by the boards of the various express lane operating agencies. I invited Lisa Klein, the Director of Field Operations and Asset Management at MTC, to provide a quick presentation on the topic. Lisa was also the MTC project manager for the recently opened express lane on I-680. Lisa, you want to take it away?
Lisa, welcome.
Thank you, Chair Arnrich. And thank you, Hisham, for that that introduction. And good morning, commissioners. You know, I don't have a whole lot to add. I think Hisham gave some great background, but there is a real short presentation, I believe, in the packet, and I will bring it up and give a quick current slide. Okay, well, we'll go. Can you all see my screen there?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just going to go through it in this mode here. All right. So, you know, Hisham mentioned there are 11 signatories to this MOU. That's because the development of the Regional Express Lane Network is a collaboration among a large number of partners. You know, CTAs, Caltrans, CHP, you know, CCTA, of course, has been a tremendous partner in this work, especially, you know, working closely with MTC. And I know we all share the objectives to really manage travel demand through the, you know, reliable, congestion-free travel, especially for express buses and carpools. You know, we're really glad that CCTA is such a strong partner, particularly in the lanes that MTC operates. Let's see, why am I'm having a little trouble controlling my, oh, there we go. Okay. All right. So
it hasn't advanced for us.
It hasn't. No.
Maybe if you just click on your number 2 there on the left, it may just select the second slide.
It's showing on my screen. You know, I think I'm going to abandon the slides.
Okay.
Because they're not, I don't think it's, you know, I'll just kind of go through some additional main points and then be happy to take any questions. You know, the Express Lane Network is operated by a series of partners in the Bay Area. MTC is one of them. You know, Alameda, VTA, and now San Mateo also operate portions of the network. And that's, you know, one of the main reasons that we, you know, really want to formalize this, the Executive Steering Committee as a deliberation body. Each of those operators has the ability to set policy for the lanes they operate. And that's the, you know, that's because the way we're set up under state law. And, you know, at the same time, we all really share the objective of making the experience seamless for users. They shouldn't need to be concerned about who's operating what portion of the network. And so, you know, we would like to really formalize this process of deliberation and collaboration. So, you know, examples, just a couple of examples of the kinds of questions that are arising with increasing frequency, you know, has to do about certain tolling policies, such as discounts for clean air vehicles, the violation penalties that monetary penalties for those who don't pay their tolls, and HOV occupancy requirements. It's, really, I think, incumbent on all of us to take a look at those policies, see, when they should really, it's important for them to be consistent regionally, and when they may be driven more at a corridor level, consistency at a corridor level, and how to keep these various agencies in sync. Because, frankly, as we're seeing, it hit the news yesterday and today, they change. BATA just reduced its penalties for toll violations, and the express lane operators will likely want to follow suit and would like to do it in a coordinated manner. That is just a little more detail, I think, on what this MOU is about. Again, to emphasize a couple points that Hisham mentioned, this is a voluntary, participation is voluntary. And at the end of the day, each operator retains its own decision authority, but this gives an opportunity for us all to get together, talk about the pros and cons, hopefully come up with consistent recommendations, and then present that to our boards. Thank you. Happy to take your questions.
Great, Lisa. Thank you very much. Hisham, do you have anything else to add on this, or?
No, sir.
Okay, great. We'll go first questions or comments from committee members. Any comments, questions? Okay, seeing none. Christina, did we receive any written comment?
Oh, we did not.
Okay, and is there anybody in the audience that's joining us today who would like to address the committee on this particular item? If so, just please raise your hand and we'll call on you. Do you see me, Christine?
Hands raised.
Okay, I do not as well. Okay, with that, is there any further discussion, comments, or a motion?
I'll move the item. Nowak?
Thank you.
Second, Geringer.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, moved by Nowak, seconded by Geringer. Any further comments? Seeing none, all in favor, I'm sorry. Christina, will you please, old habits, please call the roll.
Absolutely. Chair Unrich.
Yes.
Vice Chair Nowak.
Yes.
Member Butt.
Yes.
Member Geringer.
Yes.
And Member Thorpe.
Aye.
All right. The motion passes unanimously.
Great. Thank you for that. Hisham and Lisa, again, thanks for bringing this forward too. Okay, this takes us to item number 4C, and this is an information but also an action item that will be presented by Ivan Ramirez, and is to provide a project update and also to seek a approval to increase the construction allotment for agreement number 505 with Brossamer and Well for construction services related to the 680 State Route 4 interchange improvements, phase 3 widening. Hisham, good to see you. Welcome. Haven't seen you in a while.
Thank you, Commissioner, and good morning to all the committee members. And a special hi to Robert Taylor, former board chair and committee chair, coming in to our meeting. So as you mentioned, Chairman, we have a couple of items. The first one will be an informational item so that I can bring you up to date on the issues that have come up and progress on the project 684 interchange. I'm sharing my screen right now. And also to seek your approval for the increase in the allotment. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, let me change the screen here. Okay. Again, my name is Ivan Ramirez, and I'm the Director of Construction for the authority. So a little bit of background on the project. We issued notice to proceed to contractor Brossamer Well November 14th, 2018. We have issued 123 non-working days. What that means is that there's been weather events and follow-up to the weather events where the contractor couldn't access the area. So per contract, we can ask, and we have granted relief from the schedule. So that has pushed the date a little bit, but it's just, that's something that is to be expected with a multi-year project. And like I said, I'm going to bring some detail to some of the issues that have been encountered in the project and some of the challenges that we have overcome. And over here, you see the resolution whereby the authority gave us an allotment for construction. And there's several items there, beginning with the bid items, which is the actual work. But in addition to that, there were supplemental funds, state furnished materials, and a contingency. The total allotment granted at the time of the project started was $97,702,223. So let's talk a little bit about progress. This is the east end of the project. The picture on the left is the picture that we probably showed you when I provided my last update a few months ago. And the picture on the right is the actual completion of the express lane at the west end. So let me see if I grab my pointer. So this lane over here is a brand new lane with a brand new shoulder. And of course, we connected to the existing lane at the time of before we started the project. So there's an express lane now, basically from the 684 interchange all the way to here, just west of Port Chicago. We actually opened the lanes about 2 months ago. There's one on the eastbound direction, and there's also another one on the westbound direction, but only the one going in the eastbound direction is an express lane. So this is the update on Alta Road. Last time I came here and present to you, there was the picture on the left. They were still working on the median. This area here was delayed because the contractor had some issues with one of the bridges, couldn't get to work. This is the area completed now, and you can see there that the picture of the bridge on the background is Peralta. We're a little farther away on that picture, but you can see that we have the 3 lanes in the eastbound direction, 3 lanes in the westbound direction. We have a good shoulder and also upgraded barrier rails, so it's a safer throughway where traffic's going by. And then we're going to show an update on Salon Road. And over here, similarly, we have the improvements, and we also added a new lane. And let me move this, excuse me, because I cannot see my, okay, there we go. The Zoom was in the way of my presentation. I couldn't see. So we have added bioswales, these big pits of dirt where we move the water to so that it settles there. It doesn't go into the streams and causes issue for fishes. We created a lot of those on this project, so that's shown in that picture there. Walnut Creek Bridge. I believe this is the same picture, so I apologize for that. And you can see here the widening of both bridges in the median, and there were the new lanes. As you remember, Grayson Creek, we actually replaced that bridge. Unfortunately, I don't have an update on that aerial photos for that, so I'm not going to talk too much about it other than it's similar kind of work. And this is the 684 interchange, also the improvements that were made. One point to note here, commissioners, is that the short weaving action, where people are trying to come off the freeway and people are coming on the freeway both in the eastbound and westbound direction, that has been made safer, but the issue hasn't gone away. And that's the purpose for the follow-up contracts to fix this interchange. And one thing to note here is that Lindsay and I get a lot of calls regarding why wasn't that improved during this project. So the expectation was that obviously we were going to do more of this interchange, but we do have follow-up contracts and projects, and hopefully that will over time get rid of this concern from the public. And a similar situation, it's occurring on Pacheco Boulevard, because there's a short merge also from people coming on and people getting off. And that also would be addressed by the follow-up projects that we have coming up. And as here, you can see that we have widened the bridges both on the outside and the inside to create space for the new lanes. So I'm going to get a little bit into the issues that we have encountered, because they have been substantial, they have been consistent, and somewhat frustrating, because we also have to deal with an issue that comes up. And I think to explain it a little better is that the project length is about 18,000 feet, which is about 3.5 miles long. And we have 4 different interfaces for existing conditions. We have the outside shoulder in the eastbound direction, the inside shoulder in the eastbound direction, the inside shoulder in the westbound direction and the outside shoulder in the westbound direction. So all along, we're going to be encountering existing conditions that were not identified or that there were optimistic ways to look at how we were going to handle them in the field. And in addition to that, there is work that we did underneath every single bridge. And underneath the bridges at the level of the local roads, we also did work there, and that also had existing conditions. So the number of potential locations where we could have had an issue were many. So in this change order is particularly significant because we have identified a number of different site conditions, and that it's right now it's over $1 million that we have spent addressing them. And here's a couple of examples I mentioned to you in the past. Is this is a drainage system that existed on the 680 that was completely missed during the design phase, and that was significant work was required to mitigate that, and it was compounded. The cost was compounded by the fact that this work could only happen at night because you have to close the on-ramp, off-ramp, and the main line. So it turned out to be a difficult problem to address. And the picture on the right is again, every time we're going to join up to the existing condition, there's something there. In this case, we found AC and concrete that nobody knew was there, and therefore we had to find a way to address it. It wasn't contemplated in the contract to encounter that. The electrical issues are something else that has come up in numerous places. Here's a few examples. The picture on the left, we want to put a conduit, but then we found an existing one. And what happens, commissioners, when you find an existing electrical box, then you have to trace it. Okay, where are these cables going, and where are they providing power to? And if there's something that's providing power to an existing facility or even a temporary construction facility, then we cannot just tear it apart and move on. So that we spend a lot of time investigating it and finding a solution before we can proceed. And again, that happens at multiple locations. The picture in the middle is where you see the orange line. We're supposed to put a reinforced concrete pipe, drainage pipe there. But as you can see, we have the electrical systems in place. The foundation of this cabinet is in the way. The electrical layer and its foundation is in the way, and also is this box. So we have to, before we can even do the work that is contemplated in the contract, we have to address all those issues. So that causes impacts to the contractor. It also is additional cost because you have to spend all that time doing and investigating it as well. And sometimes you have to engage the contractor so you don't get a response right away. Similarly here, we have a similar situation. This pole and conduit, it's in the way of a reinforced concrete pipe. This is a different location. Vandalism, this is an issue that occurs in basically every project throughout the Bay Area. It's a issue that I have known about since I started my career many years ago. And what happens is copper has value, and vandals go into the existing facilities and they just take the wire with them, and then it's a surprise when you show up the next day and then you have to fix it, or worse, we put new wire and then they steal it and then we have to replace it. In addition to that, we have issues where public dumping, public thinks that the state highway system is their place to dump anything you can think of. And we also spend a lot of money, not only sending it out and transporting it and sending it out to a appropriate facility. Oftentimes we have to test it because if the material is contaminated, we are responsible to take it to a facility that will only take that waste material. It cannot be just any dump area. So another issue that is consistent throughout our duration in this project is the various maintenance issues. This is a recurring problem, and it can be, here in this picture, we're showing the crash cushions, which continuously get hit, and we replace them, but they continuously get hit. But also, they hit metal beam guardrails, existing metal beam guardrails that we have to replace, or newly installed metal beam guardrails, and we have to replace. And so anyway, so people are distracted, they're speeding, they're under the influence, and these are the type of things where before we begin work in the morning, we have to find a way to address them. Buried man-made objects, these are just a lot of concrete that is just buried underneath. On the left side, that slab was called out to be removed. It was supposed to be 8 inches thick. You can see that at some locations it was up to 15 or 16 inches thick. So that contractor will ask for more money to take care of the extra material. Over here in the middle picture with is circled in red, that is a big block of concrete, as you can see there, and we couldn't proceed with the work until that was removed. And also there on the right is a CADH or some kind of foundation that needed to be removed. So that's that. No, that alone is $585,000. I have brought up this issue before. It's about these terminal joints. What happened here, commissioners, is that it was missed during the design. These terminal joints. Also keep in mind that, you know, of course, we're paying for it in construction, but had the design contemplated having this work, then our bid obviously would have been higher because the contractor would have put this work that needs to happen, regardless of whether it was discovered during the design or it was discovered in construction. We needed to get it done. Nonetheless, it creates a lot of impacts, and that change order alone is about $870,000. Contractor cannot move forward. He has to address this before he can continue with his plan. I have also brought up this issue before, and it's consistent with the theme here. We are placing new asphalt adjacent to existing freeway roadway, and it's the contract assumes that it's going to be a neat line, but obviously when we go there and try to connect, we cannot just put it up against a rounded edge. And the reason why I'm bringing it up again, because the cost is significant. It's $571,000. This is an issue that also is necessary part of the work, and whether it would have been addressed in design or now we're addressing it in construction, is still a project cost to a large degree. And here, this is another issue. I'm trying to give you a flavor of some of the issues that came up during the construction that were not really fully addressed during design. This is a typical bridge with a big angle compared to the creek or road below would require this step kind of approach slabs. Well, our contract didn't contemplate it. Assume a parallel line, and as you can see, now you have to do more forming and more material to be able to put it as it should have done. And this is again another issue that we're addressing here in construction. It's more expensive, but it still is a project cost. This is a picture or a graphic indicating to you more or less where the change orders costs are. I just gave you a glimpse of the things that we have encountered. There's multiple, there's many. And on foreseeing field conditions is the big one. It's over $5 million. Other is basically what I was talking about a little earlier, where the design was, there was ambiguities or inconsistencies, and we had to, make them whole here in construction, and it's over $2 million. Again, most of those are project costs. So, you have to look at it from that perspective. Stakeholder, this is Caltrans, any of the districts that we're dealing with, where, the airport, they make demands. Well, when we're in construction, we have to address them. So we spend money there. The supplemental items are the ones that you have provided in our allotment, and primarily that is for flagging of, and also CHP gets paid out of those funds. Maintenance, like we talked about, there's a lot of issues, potholes, metal beam guardrails, crash cushions, we have to keep going. We also have spent some money on accelerating or making the faces more efficient, and also there's a little bit of money on permits. So that's an overview of where the money has basically gone. Before I conclude my presentation, I want to bring up something that is on the table right now. The contractor has basically put a demand for payment that is several dollars, a couple $1 million, several millions of dollars. And their argument is that, there are so many issues that have occurred here on the project that they are entitled to more money. So the red indicates a request for information. This is when they feel there's ambiguities or they want clarification on certain things. These are normal on projects, but they claim there's too many. Contractor also claims there's too many change orders. So right now, staff is evaluating this request for payment. What we think is that we have pay the contractor what's allowed in the contract. We think we've been fair. We're willing to listen, and we're reviewing it. But should this issue not be resolved by staff, probably the next step will be going to some kind of third party, probably some kind of mediation. It's required by law that we do it. So this is something to keep, we're going to be bringing updates to the board so that they're informed as to how is it that we're moving forward and what will be the next steps and maybe some expectations. So with that, I'm going to stop my share screen, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Ivan, thank you for the detail. I know I speak for everybody. We always appreciate the detail, the thoroughness, and we trust your expertise in digging in and getting the right value for our agency. Are there any questions of Ivan at this time? Okay, seeing none. Ivan, great. You want to continue with the next phase? And
yes.
Okay.
Let me trying to share my screen. Hold on, please.
I know I would just add, I know because I've talked to Tim about this. I know Tim and Ivan, the two of you, really been working on this with Brossamore, and I hope that they take your expertise and know that the board supports you guys in your recommendations.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm having a little bit of a, maybe I need to share screen. I'm sharing my, can you see my presentation?
Yeah, we can see both the current slide and the next slide.
Yeah, for whatever reason, it's not going on. Let me restart it if you don't mind, really quick.
Okay.
Okay.
So this is just to be clear, we're on 4C2 agenda item, which is the approval to increase the construction allotment.
Yes, it is. I just want to make sure I have what the ask is. So
okay, we can see it that way.
Is that better now?
Yeah, there you have it. You got it.
Okay,
perfect.
So, Commissioner, this is an action item. In front of you, you have a new resolution, actually the same resolution with revision 1, where we're asking you to increase the construction allotment. That's on the left column there. On the right column is an analysis that we did based on the status of where issues are. We expect that we will finish the contract at $99,739,811. So if you bring the $2,073,000 to from the reserve that you have specifically set aside for situations just like this, then that we believe at this point that will carry us through the construction phase. Obviously, this does not handle any potential liabilities that we might have based on what the contractor has submitted, and that was what I showed you earlier. So we would like commissioners to approve resolution 1859P, revision 1, which will increase the authorized construction allotment by $2,773,000 for a new total construction amount value of $99,775,223. And in addition to that, we seek approval for resolution 2147P, which will adopt amendment number 2 to the 2019 Measure J strategic plan, releasing those reserves and bringing them into the project. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, commissioners.
Great, Ivan, thank you for that. And we'll go to commissioners. Any questions or comments from commissioners? Okay, seeing none, then Christina, oh, I'm sorry, Sue, I missed it. My apologies.
I just wanted to clarify one thing Ivan said. It doesn't include what you just went through before on additional change orders that may still take place. So we'll expect additional change orders coming down the road.
So sorry, I didn't make that clear. So no, this $2 million would handle all the change orders to complete the physical work. Okay, so that will take care of this. But I show you that slide with all the RFIs. That's additional payment that the contractor is seeking, and those are not being addressed by this increase in the allotment.
Okay,
Because those are in negotiations and.
Yeah, that's a.
and
Okay.
private
that's,
comment.
I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
And Ivan, again, you have our support to, based on your experience and your vast expertise, we absolutely are behind you on that.
Thank you. And, I also want to thank Team Health because we've been working together through this very, very difficult issue because it is very difficult, this project. So I appreciate your support and also Tim's. So thank you.
Great. Okay, Christina, did we have any public comment, written comment on this?
No, we did not.
Okay. Then I will open up for any public comments on this item. If you do have comments, it's limited to 3 minutes. And if you would raise your hand, we'll call on you at this time. And I do not see anybody. Christina, do you see anyone?
No, I don't see any hands raised.
Okay. All right. Then we'll close the public comment portion on this and come back. Teresa,
I'm ready to make the motion.
please do so. Thank you.
I move that we approve resolution 18-59-P and resolution 21-47-P.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, Nowak?
Okay, it's been moved by Geringer and second by Nowak. Any further comments or discussion? Seeing none, Christina, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, Chair Arnrich,
Yes.
Vice Chair Nowak,
Yes.
Member Butt,
Yes.
Member Geringer,
Yes.
and Member Thorpe.
Aye.
Excellent. The motion passes unanimously.
Great, thank you. And thanks, Ivan, and thanks, Tim, for staying on top of this issue. This will take us to item 4D, and this is a informational item being introduced by Stephanie Hu to provide a presentation on the East Contra Costa County Dynamic Personal Micro Transit Feasibility Study. That needs an acronym. Normally we don't ask for them, but boy, that needs one. I hope you can come up with a short one. Stephanie, welcome. Nice to see you.
Good morning, Chair Arnrich and committee members. Yes, there is an acronym, is DPMT. And this presentation will be given by Habib Shamsky from AMG, and the study was conducted by AMG for the local jurisdictions in East County. And with that, I'll have Habib take it over.
Great. Welcome, Habib.
Thank you, Chair Arnrich and the commissioners. Again, my name is Habib Shamsku. I am with Advanced Mobility Group. We're in charge of this East Bay Dynamic Personal Microtransit Feasibility study that we conducted earlier in the year for the community in East County. So for the purpose of easiness, let's call it microtransit. How about that? Yeah. Next slide is first, let's take a look at the little movie that shows the concept for those of you that haven't been at the Momentum Station and didn't get a chance to get the ride with it. This is the unit that we are talking about, and you see the size of it. It opened at the middle, and no matter how tall you are, you can get in, sit down, and the door closed, and just simply move. 4 people can sit in there comfortably, but including it is wheelchair equipped, and this is a boarding zone. Now it's taking off and they're moving on an existing or in the asphalt path on a secure fenced right of way that you could see in here. This proof of concept have been completed, and now we are moving into the second phase of this. So that shows that to get yourself familiar with what we have. I'm sure a few of these have seen it. The rest of you will see when we complete the second phase, which is a complete loop in the first quarter of the 2022. So what is the dynamic personal microtransit? Next slide, it will show you again the concept with the picture. Is a closed system, autonomous, and it is fully electric. It's public micro-transit solution to address our transit accessibility. It's virtual rail, tires on the pathway, private seating on demand, safe and non-stop rides. And it is highly financially sustainable model that can last for many years. The next slide, it will give you the simple advantages of the DPMT or microtransit. Is more than anything else is economic, help with the economic development. Sustainability is support emission reduction goals that we have. It is a transit accessibility for a community of concern, including the first mile, last mile connection, complement fixed route transit and does not replace it, highly cost effective. It requires very small footprint. It is safe, personalized, on demand. Let's talk about the safety first. So the safety has got the two levels of the safety has been built into the system. First, personal safety. It is personalized, safe, on-demand travel built with multi-layer of the protection and security, including security barriers, sensors, SOS bottom, cameras, instant emergency response, vehicle that stop and react in concert. The system safety include the real-time monitoring inside and outside of the network, equipped with the intrusion alarm system. The system safety also is safe right of way, closed corridor means it never mix people and the vehicles. It has built-in multi-layer protection and the security into the system as well. I need to say that this is our jurisdiction is not the only one that we are considering the DPMT. There are others in Mountain View, South San Francisco, and at San Jose Airport. They are considering the same thing as well in the Bay Area, and there are other jurisdictions in Southern California as well that they are considering building the DPMT to address their transit accessibility issue. So we conducted this study by the contribution by the 4 cities in East Contra Costa County, including Brentwood, Pittsburgh, Oakley, and the city of the Antioch, as well as the Contra Costa County, CCTA and Tri-Delta Transit. They were involved in this study as well, that the Glideways, the vendor, contributed heavily on this feasibility study. I must say that there were no major J money involved in the feasibility study. So early on the project, we have established some goals and objectives that agreed by all stakeholders. Those 3 simple goals are: number 1, provide transit accessibility by building microtransit system to provide first mile, last mile connection. Provide transit accessibility to assure economic development and attract employers. I must say the project is, as much as the transportation project, is also economic development project. And third one, evaluate feasibility study to attract potential public funding and private financing. So the goal is to conduct this project in P3 environment. This is the conceptual routing plan for the 4 cities, and this is highly at the conceptual sketch level planning exercise. By no means is anywhere close to final, that we have worked with each city individually to come up with the preferred routes, and that's what you see as the route that is agreed upon early on the project. The next slide, it shows this network parallel to the SR4 and in connection with the BART system. There are 53 boarding station has been established for this network to provide transit accessibility, both to fixed route transit activity center, as well as connection to all the BART station. In order to be able to see whether we have a real project or not, we needed to do a demand analysis to see whether there is a demand for it. So we use the census-based LEHD to estimate potential trips with walking distance of a proposed boarding zone. We added existing mode share and existing ridership trends and used the Logit model to estimate mode shift from the drive alone and the carpool to propose boarding zone, and added annual growth plus the planned project to estimate 2030 ridership. So the outcome was that the 13 million potential demand for the unit, but further we slashed this almost to half based on some very, very conservative criteria to 7 million annual ridership estimate per year for purpose of our study. To just put it in perspective, this ridership, currently the Tri-Delta Transit carry 2.7 million passengers per year. The eBART annual ridership is 2.2 million along this corridor, and there are 50 million people using the SR4, that's annual traffic. All of this data is the pre-COVID data, and if we add the 7 million, you can see the impact on congestion as well as the on use of the transit and the transit accessibility. The project is 100% green, and this slide, it shows that in comparison with the BRT or LRT or any buses and compared to cars is 1x versus 6x and the 15x for the passenger car. Microtransit provide for a complete trip that is not involved any auto. You can walk to microtransit, take a ride with the BART and commuter rail, and then take the microtransit back to your destination. You can bike to microtransit as well as go to using the fixed bus. And then come back to the microtransit again. So this picture, it shows that it is for the complete trip, which involve no auto in here. And let's review some of the benefit again. It support economic development and create jobs. It increase mobility and connectivity. Is a congestion relief project with development of the first microtransit network in Contra Costa County, which reduce VMT on the SR4. It increased access for underserved community. As I said, is a transit accessibility project with the first and last mile connectivity. We develop a very conceptual financial plan to know that what level of the estimate that we need to have at the planning level exercise for the cost for the entire network. We broke it down in the three different segments: Pittsburgh, Antioch, Oakley, and Brentwood, and the rough overall estimate is $450 million, perhaps to the with the 10-15% plus and minus. The financial and implementation plan now include exploring private sector participation. That's the key advantage for this project, that the while opportunity is there with the private sector. Private funding to finance the entire project. Refinement of the cost estimated will be next, and development of the phasing plan. We are evaluating grant funding opportunity for the project from many different sources of the funding opportunity, and we seek input from the stakeholder. We continue testing at the Momentum station. I must say that the feasibility study passed through all 4 cities, city council with the resolution of the support, including the Tri-Delta Transit passed the resolution of the support for this project. So we have the consensus of the entire community in the East Contra Costa County. Again, these are demonstration of what you see at the Momentum station, which you haven't seen. We just started last week the construction of the 7th phase of the proof of concept at the Momentum station, which gonna include the complete loop. Next step in the project is additional industrial outreach, refining funding plan and segmentation, expanding proof of concept at the Momentum station, as I discussed, and investigate delivery option and P3 authority for the CCTA and the Tri-Delta Transit. I'm sure you're going to hear about this project from Executive Director in next several months a lot. And with that, I thank you for your attention, and I will, you can ask any question that you have.
Great, Habib, thank you for that presentation. Fascinating. Just a quick question, and we'll open it up to our committee members. The 450 million doesn't seem that much relative to the size. Does that include any issues with right-of-way access and things like that? It looked like it was only construction.
It is inclusive of all the right-of-way and all the engineering, construction, as well as the system. So as I said, the most important thing and the most important advantage of the micro transit is the low cost, low capital cost compared with the extension of the BART or fixing any other transit option. That is the key. And second most advantage is that can be implemented in 5 years versus any BART extension is 15 to 25 years.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Questions from committee members or comments? Sue, and then Teresa.
With the demand of 7 million, can the system handle that kind of demand? Seems like with 4 passengers per vehicle, seems like you need a lot of vehicles to hit a $7 million demand.
That's actually a very good question. That if you think about a traffic lane that can carry 2,000 passengers per car per lane, micro transit with the very small head base can carry theoretically up to 10,000 passengers per hours if you provide enough of the pods to carry that. So you can add and deduct as many pods that you wanted based on demand. You have to realize that this is moving consistently through the loops without any kind of the stop. Think about it like a tram in the ski area. That is how it operates, but this one it would be on the ground. Yeah.
So that equals about 4,800 trips a day, 7 days a week, 365. So that means you have to have 400 cars. So when you start to get it down, it's a big number, but that's an annualized. So you could do that if there were 4 people in every trip and every trip was maximized, you'd only need 400, but it's probably.
But you would expect the demand to be a little lumpier time-wise.
Yes,
you would expect exactly. It, so you can't sort of assume demand evenly spread out throughout the day. It's got to be lumpy. Okay.
Right. Teresa?
I was going to say I like the highly technical term of lumpy throughout the day.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay, I'm sorry.
that wasn't why I raised my hand, but I did like that. And I'm sure Tim will comment on this as well. I have had the privilege actually and opportunity to be out at Glideways and Momentum a couple of times over the last several months with various legislators and Tim and Lindsay and the team, and just the excitement in terms of the progress and opportunities relative to this, to the Glideways and the DPMT is very exciting. And our legislators, particularly Congressman DeSaulnier, just was very excited about working with CCTA and on the regulatory issues. And so I just want to say kudos to Habib and everyone who has a part in this, and look forward to those private partnerships as we move forward in trying to make this happen in East County. So thank you.
Great, thanks, Teresa. Other comments, questions from board members? Okay, seeing none, we'll open up. Christina, did we see any? Oh, I'm sorry, Tim, go ahead, please.
Well, I just wanted to follow up on Chair Geringer's comment. So she is right. This is very exciting. I will say that we've seen a lot of progress with Glideways. I mean, they started building their research development facility earlier this year. They're making a lot of tremendous progress with their concept and with their solution. And we really are supporting them in every way we can. And so as we're taking them, taking the legislature and the delegation in Contra Costa to Momentum Station. The other one that was also really excited was Assemblymember Tim Grayson. He was also very excited. Congressman Mark DeSaulnier, he was very excited. And so we are, looking for opportunities to partner with them to help kind of advance this. There is some potential regulation that we will need reform to make this happen, particularly with Public Utility Commission. So CCTA will be supporting that request with Public Utility Commission and Glideways. But in terms of the greater concept, the dynamic personal microtransit, it's a great concept. It really helps get transit into neighborhoods where you can normally not get transit, like big, large buses, or even extension of BART. We're not extending BART anymore. We're not doing, large extensions. And so now we can have an ability to really leverage this technology and other similar technologies to really help with that first and last mile solution that we have. And so you're going to be hearing more about this, in the upcoming meetings in January and February. So we will be bringing more information to you as we kind of go through the process with dynamic personal microtransit, and also appreciate your support.
Great, Tim, thank you for that. Okay, Christina, any written comments again, just to double check? None?
No written comments.
All right, so this is an opportunity for anybody who's here in attendance today. If you want to raise your hand, we'll call on you, and you can have up to 3 minutes to comment or ask questions. Is there anybody who would like to comment?
I see no hands raised. God bless you. You're muted, Chair. Chair Arnrich, you're muted.
Great, I probably sneezed while I was well, the opposite, my apologies. That will take us to item 5 under correspondence and communications. We have no correspondence. Item 6A, chair's comments. Really just excited to see. I know most of us are meeting again with Tim, got to meet with him, and just excited about the work that's being done to position CCTA to take advantage of the new federal programs as well as the state. Item 6B, any commissioners' comments or reports? Teresa?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I know several of us were able to attend the event commemorating the naming of the 4th bore after Congresswoman Tauscher, and I thought it was a very well done and appropriate recognition for her. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that some of us were there. I'm sure I believe everyone on the authority board was invited, and so it was an honor to be there. And just in terms of our our city, I want to say that at our last Lafayette City Council meeting, we adopted a Vision Zero policy, and I want to thank the authority staff for their assistance in moving us forward. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Teresa. Comments from any other committee members? Okay, seeing none, that'll take us to item 6C. Tim, any other comments?
No executive comments. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, well, thank you, everybody. This is going to take us to our next item on the agenda, and this is a closed session related to public employee performance evaluation pursuant to Government Code 54957, title Executive Director. And we will now convene into closed session. And thank you, everybody, for attending today.
Hey, Perry Ann, do I stop the recording? It's not going to record the breakout room, right? You're on mute.